Hello everyone. Sorry about that. So today we have a very special game of chess played between these two chess extraordinaires. We have GM Ninomai Inanis with the white pieces versus GM Pikamee with the black pieces. Now, this stream was incredible. I think it's up there with some of the best VTuber streams in history. And of course, I'm extraordinarily biased because, these are obviously my two of my favorite VTubers. Of course, Pikamee being absolutely my favorite, and then Ina being my favorite Ian, for those of you that don't know. So I was very excited for their collab, and I saw that they were doing the Clubhouse 51 games, and I thought, that's pretty cool, but I'm sure they're going to stay away from chess. It's because of all the crazy stuff that's happened within these chess games, but I was so excited when they started playing chess. It was just a dream come true. These two of my favorite VTubers playing my favorite game. Well, not my favorite game, but chess. They're playing chess. It was so awesome to see, and it was a ton of fun. For those who haven't watched the stream, I'd highly recommend you watching it because it was such a good time. It was so funny. Ina and Pikamee just have such good synergy together, and it was just an absolute treat to watch. So I thought I should mention once again, because I've gotten, well, I think it's just a singular comment. This is just meant to be for fun. This isn't a critique of either of these people. I adore both of these VTubers. I love watching them. This is by no means me making fun of them or anything like that. It's just sort of fun little thing where we analyze a very not so orderly game of chess, a very chaotic chess game. It's all for fun, so I hope you guys can enjoy this and appreciate the sort of comedic nature of this not to be taken seriously. I should also mention, be sure to check out the playlist in the description for other chess videos. We have chess videos on the Chess and Code Geass, the anime. We also have chess videos on Hololive, such as Kiara Takanashi versus Amelia Watson versus Gargura. And so far, every Hololive EN besides More Calliope, which I hope will happen eventually, because that should be interesting. But again, be sure to check out the video, the playlist in the description for all of your Hololive/VTuber/anime chess needs. And yeah, again, if you haven't seen the stream, be sure to check it out. It'll be in the description. It was such a good stream. And their chess game definitely lived up to all of the hype that I had for it and more. It was absolutely crazy, as you'll see. So without further ado, why don't we get into this? So the first move of the game by Ina is pawn to d4, the queen's pawn opening. This is what I actually start out with in basically all of my chess games as white. And then Pikamee answers with pawn to d5. Now this is a standard response to this. Just move the pawn out, and it is solid. Won't be seeing too many more of these solid moves, but anyways, pawn to c3 is what's played next. Not exactly the Queen's Gambit, which I would have been very excited to see because it is my go-to opening in chess. But regardless, c3 is totally good. Next up is e5. Now this is a pretty strange move because as white you can take the pawn and you kind of get center control for free. It's not like a complete throw or anything like that. You'll see plenty of those on both sides, but it is a strange move because you can't immediately take the pawn back. Now you can win it back eventually, but it's not the most sound move. Knight to f3 is what's played. Now this is also pretty questionable because you need to be taking that pawn in the center, but either way. Now c5 is played next, and this is just strange. I mean, you got 3 pawns in the center, none of which are protected, and it's not the most solid opening by GM Pikamee, but I'm sure she'll bring it back, Dayo. Knight captures e5 is played, solid move, definitely the best move there. And next up is king to e7, and as you might see by the progress bar, it's a bit of a throw because now as black, for those of you who don't know or not particularly familiar with chess, there's this thing called the castling that you want to do with your king and one of your rooks, which gets the king basically to safety and out of the center of the board where it can be attacked or checked and whatnot. By moving the king, you're not able to castle. And you're also just putting him in danger, and it's just not great. You definitely want to be castling in chess. Despite really technically only being up 1 piece in material, white is up 4, essentially, just because the position is very, very losing. So very, very yabai Dayo for Pikamee, for a kettle here. But well, next up is knight to g4, and it is marked as a complete missed win. The best move here would be pawn captures on c5, and you're just establishing a lot of control in the center, and it's just a very strong move. But regardless, knight to g4 is played by Ninomai Inanis, and actually black is winning now. And there it goes. So now what Pikamee really needs to do here is capture the knight on g4, because it is hanging, it is completely unprotected, and you get your bishop in a very good position by taking that square. But instead, queen to d7 is played. It's an absolute blunder, and just a very, very not good move. You are aligning your bishop and your queen, which is generally pretty good. You do want to be doing that when you can, but not in this case. You got to be capturing. After knights to e3 by Ina, knights to f6 by Pikamee is played, developing some pieces and getting yourself in the game, even though you still can't castle, and the black king is very much exposed here. Well, not directly, but not in a very good spot. This bishop is going to be very hard to develop, because even if you do something like pawn to g6 and then move the bishop fianchetto right here, then the knight's just blocking it, and it would take a lot of moves. But regardless, pawn to h3 is played. Best move here would actually be g3, so preparing your bishop to fianchetto right here. Regardless, knights to e4 is played, and you can see every single move, the progress bar goes in favor of the opposite player, just because none of these moves are engine precise, you could say. It's a little unfortunate, but regardless. Knights to f3 is what's played. Next move here is king to e8. Best move here would have been knights to g3, getting it out of harm's way, because now obviously you are just letting your knight get captured, which is exactly what happened in the game. Props to GM Ninomai Inanis for finding the best move here. Now pawn to c4 is played. Best move here would have actually been queen to c2 right there. Next up, bishop to e7 is played. Best move here actually would have been pawn captures on d4, just establishing a lot of center control, challenging this knight right here. It would have been a very solid move, but not seen, unfortunately, by GM Pikamee. Knight to g4 is played, followed by c captures on d4. So very good by Pikamee finding the best move. This is why Pikamee is just the best. That's why we all love Pikamee, because of her chess moves they're all so genius. Knights to e5 is played. What is played is knights to c6. Now I will give you a few moments to try to find the correct move for white here. It probably shouldn't take too long, but I'll give you a second to try to find the best move as I drink some water. And if you have found it, congratulations, you are an excellent viewer and excellent chess player, a connoisseur of great HoloLive chess. Of course, it is knight captures the queen over here on d7. If black did push bishop to h4, then you have a free move. The king would have to move here, and then you get this knight, or get this queen out of harm's way. Or really, you could basically do any moves, just moving the queen out of the way, but instead the queen is hanging. Of course, knight capture is what's played. And now Pikamee moves knights to d8, just moving backwards, which is a very strange move, but trust the plan. Next up is knight to e5, getting out of harm's way. Bishop to e6. And then Ina plays a4. Best move here would be a queen captures on d4, since this pawn is completely unprotected, and it would just put your queen on a very strong square. Regardless, moving on, after pawn to f5, Ninomai Inanis plays rook to a3. And if you've been watching these videos, you'd probably realize that there has been a strange theme with trying to get rooks in play by pushing the pawn up 2 squares and then pushing the rook up as well. What you really want to be doing is connecting your rooks as soon as possible within the back ranks, then just for safety, and then you could actually afterwards you can align them to attack vertically. But this is a strange move considering all of your pieces in the back rank are completely underdeveloped or undeveloped for white. So I mean, white of course is up a queen, so it's not really a huge deal. But all of these pieces are essentially unmoved in the back, so it's something to consider. You want to be developing your bishops and your knights far before you start moving your rooks out. Regardless, Pikamee plays f8, sort of also getting the rooks in play, which is good. Then rook to g3 is played, attacking this pawn right here on g7. Bishop captures on c4 is played, which is a strange move because the best move here would actually be bishop to h4, so pinning this white rook to the king, which would have been a very strong move, but instead what is played is bishop captures on c4, followed by knight captures on c4, of course, which is a very good move because it's a free piece, and we love free pieces here. And I'm sure a lot of yabais and a bunch of other fun little lines were set by Pikamee at this moment, if my memory serves me correctly. Rook to c8 is played here, followed by pawn to e3. And then pawn to b5 is played by Ina, putting even more pressure on this knight right here. And then rook captures on g7 is played. Best move here would actually be pawn captures on b5, just getting that threat out of the way of this knight. So if Pikamee wants to capture this knight, then it is immediately taken by this bishop here on f1. Instead, rook captures on g7 is played, and then Pikamee plays a bit of a strange move here. It is rook captures on c4. Now it's not a terrible move because you're gonna get this bishop back once you recapture with this pawn here, and you have a very strong center. But you don't want to be taking these trades generally. Now Pikamee plays rook captures on c4, and then Ina plays rook captures on e7 with check. I believe this is the first check of the game. The only move for black here is king captures on e7, otherwise you're in check and you can't do anything else about it. Bishop to d2 is played, just developing, finally, and then knights to e6 was played. Now Ina is 15 points up, and it is looking quite yabai Dayo for Amino Pikamee here. Pawn to b3, pawn captures on e3, bishop captures c4, captures, taking this bishop right here, with check also. Queen captures on d2, pawn to e3 is played. Now this is a strange move. Now pawn to e3 is played by Pikamee. Now this is a bit of a strange move because best move here would have been pawn captures the bishop on c4. Either way, queen to e3 is played, and then pawn captures on c4 is now played. And now captures. So this is very much in favor of Ina still, up 12 points. It's not the worst we've ever seen in terms of leads in Hollow Chess. I believe at one point Emilia was up like 64 points in one game or something like that. I don't know. It's been a while, but it's definitely favoring Ninomai Inanis at this point. Rook to c3 is played, and then rook to f7, knight to b5, a5, h4, f4. Now Ina goes on the offensive with queen to a7 check, followed by f6, best move protecting this rook here on f7. Now Ina plays a very strange move here. Ina plays rook to f1, and it's a strange move because you lose the queen on a7. Granted, you get this rook back, so you get a little bit back from this move, but it's not a trade you want to be doing. And granted, you're still in the lead regardless, but you lose your queen. You give away your queen for a rook essentially, and queens are a lot better than rooks. So for all you aspiring chess players out there, don't trade your queens for rooks unless you have something very tasty coming around the corner. But either way, of course, Ina plays knight captures on a7, followed by queen to g6, rook to f3, knight to g7, pawn to g3. Now, what is played by Pikamee is pawn captures on g3, and you might notice that the bar in the left it goes quite in favor of Ina by playing this move. Now, it's such a bad move because you are more or less throwing away your only win condition, that being this pawn. This pawn needs to be defended. That is the only way you are getting a promotion at all, basically. And by capturing this, you're letting it be captured by the rook and putting yourself in check as well. King to f7 or h7 is played. Now, what you could do as white is you could sack this rook for it to capture this knight, and after the queen recaptures it, then you could just keep pushing your pawns and you get a promotion, and then the game's over. Now, Ina plays knight to c6, not seeing that, not seeing the knight or the rook sack. Next up is queen to h8, and Ina then plays knight to e7, king to h7 by Pikamee. Ina plays pawn to c5, which is the best move here. Just want to push this pawn, get a promotion, and make it very easy for yourself. King to h8 is played, and then knight captures on g7, so sacking the rook, or rook captures on g7, sacking the rook. Recaptures by Pikamee, of course, but this is essentially an unwinnable game for Pikamee. Ina is up 73 points, which I do believe is basically the largest difference so far. These pawns cannot go anywhere and will not go anywhere. You have a passed pawn here, which cannot be stopped, essentially, if you play it correctly, and it is yabai Dayo for Pikamee, and no. Anyways, knights to f5 with check is played, king to f8, pawn to c6, king to e8, pawn to c7, king to d7, and now the knight to e7 is played. Pikamee plays a very, very strange move, and it is king to e6. Now, with this king, you don't want to be baited into capturing this knight, because then white will just push the pawn and get a queen. And I'm glad Pikamee saw that, I think. But what is played is king to e6, so not capturing either of these, and white still gets a promotion. So it's a strange move, and it doesn't help you. Ina promotes to a queen, of course. King to e5 is played. Queen to b8 with check, and then king to e4. Now there is a mate in 6, which I will show you. So something like queen to d6, king moves to f3, queen to d4, king moves to g3, let's say, knights to f5 with check, king to f3, and queen to e3 with check. And we have one move basically, and it is king to g4 after queen to f2, something like king to h3, and now checkmate with queen to g3. So that's just a mating pattern that could potentially be brought out right there. Instead, king to e2 followed by king to d4, queen to b5, king to e4 captures the pawn, king to f4, and now queen captures on h5, and there's a mate in 3 here, which I will again show you. Well, it was a mate in 1 last turn. Queen to g5 with check, and after king to e4, which is really the only move you can do, and move the move the queen to e3, and that is checkmate. So a lot of possibilities here, but instead, Ina simplifies it, just takes the pawn, and now this game is over, surely. There is nothing that can be done for Pikamee or by Pikamee. This game's over, surely. King to e3, king to d6, knight to c8 with check, king to d5, pawn to h5, king to e5, queen to f4 with check, king to e6, pawn to h6, king to d5, pawn to h7, king to c5, and now we have 2 queens on the board, which is almost always better than just one. King to d5 is played, but there's a mate in 2. King to g8 with check is played by Ina. What could have been played is queen to h1 actually, and then after something like e6, checkmate right there. Anyways, after blah blah blah, queen to g8 with check, king to c5 is played. Now, if you were paying attention to this whole thing, you might be able to sort of piece together that Ina does not have the endgame knowledge that is really required of getting a proper checkmate. Granted, with 2 queens, even the most simple chess players will eventually get just a ladder checkmate. But Ina has essentially no experience with endgames, or, well, not a whole lot of experience with chess in general, but definitely a lot of difficulty with endgames. We'll see how that pans out. Well, spoiler alert. There is one move which you cannot do as white, and it is queen to e4. And that is what is known as a stalemate. So for those of you who don't know or aren't very familiar with chess, there is what is called a stalemate, where the other player has no moves to make without putting themselves in check, but they are not in check themselves currently. And when you can't move anywhere, it is what's known as a stalemate, where it is essentially a draw. Well, it is a draw. Even though you could be up, or you could have mate 1 and be up 100 points of material. If there is no moves to be made, then that is a stalemate. It is a 100% a draw. So that is what is played by Ina, sadly, if you were rooting for Ina. But if you were rooting for Pikamee, such as myself, then this was a lovely little surprise. Some people saw it coming. I had considered it, but I thought better of it. Lo and behold, we have a tie between GM Pikamee and GM Ninomai Inanis. So which of course makes sense, them two being the top chess geniuses. So, I guess we could have seen this coming, huh? This was a whole lot of fun to play. I was so excited they were playing chess, and the fact that they technically drew is lovely, because these are my 2 favorite VTubers, and them drawing is comforting to me for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why, but it brought a smile to my face. Anyways, that is it. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out some of my other chess analysis videos with we have games with Ina, Gura, and Kiara Takanashi as well. I don't believe we've had Mori quite yet, but I am very much looking forward to that day, if it does come eventually. So thank you all for watching, and have an excellent day.